So I'm going to start with a little bit of anatomy. You know me, I like you to all be educated. So the back, predominantly it's made up of the vertebrae and the pelvis. So you've got two chunks of pelvis with your tailbone in between. For our ladies, it's a bit more of a mobile structure due to our hormone changes. For our gentlemen, it's a much more stable structure, the pelvis. For women, we have a heart-shaped pelvis, which changes our loading and our mechanism. It's also what enables us to be childbearing. Gentlemen, you've got a much more square pelvis. It goes straight down, so you've got a biomechanical advantage over us ladies when it comes to not injuring yourselves. So, the pelvis has got your tailbone in between. Stacked on top of your tailbone are the vertebrae that make up your spine. So your low back is your lumbar spine. That's what we usually refer to when we say we've got low back pain, you've got lumbar pain. The most common causes are a facet joint strain. So a facet joint is the little joints that join the vertebrae together. They're the ones that sit on the side and allow for rotation and side bend motion. Or a disc injury. Okay, we've all heard of disc injuries and they all make us pull that face because you think that's not good, that's weeks that you're going to be out. Okay. The biggest thing that causes problems in the lumbar spine, you know me, it's posture. So there's two really common forms of posture that we see. Number one is a head forward posture. So people that spend a lot of time on computers or sitting at desks tend to end up with this really flattened back, chin poking forward, okay? Sometimes you get a really arched back and chin forward, okay? That one is generally people that have learned how to stabilize themselves beautifully by pushing bone against bone, and they're just letting their chins hang out. They've just balanced them nicely. This is really, really hard on your facet joints, okay? They're the little guys between the vertebrae. The other one that we see, and this is more common amongst the male population, is a sway back posture. You guys have figured this out. You're just going to hang on back here. Sometimes you even poke your chin forward with your head spilled back. I don't know how you manage to not fall over, but it's nicely done, okay? So when you're coming forward and you've got your chin forward and your center of gravity is forward, this puts a lot of pressure on the discs in your back, okay? So to describe a disc, I want you to picture a jam donut between two books. Okay? With me so far? The jam hole is an area of weakness in the outer shell of your disc. As we get older, sadly, we all develop these little weak spots. And the young guys here, it starts about 26 to 30, so you're not exempt, okay? So, the bone is the books, the disc is the donut. If you gently push the books, you can keep the jam within the donut if you move it in any direction. If you push too quickly or too forcefully, that jam is going to shoot out the back of your donut. If you do it quite well, you can scooch the jam back in the donut. If you give it a big slap, there's no getting that jam back in that donut. So in a nutshell, those are your disc injuries, okay? So there's different levels. Really, you want to think about being super careful with that donut and keeping those books as evenly balanced as possible so that the force squishes up and down and the jam can stay in the donut, okay? If you're pushing too far in either direction, it may not end well for that donut, okay? So that's your anatomy in a nutshell and how the posture affects it. Now, the big thing with disc injuries, and this is the one that everybody worries about. No one seems to worry when we say you've got a facet joint strain. They just go, well, that's great. How do you fix that? You say you've got a disc injury, people's faces fill with dread, okay? The biggest, most common cause of a disc injury is rotation in a flexed position, okay? Shoes, putting socks on, pulling out that innocent little weed in the garden, those are all things that will cause an overload of your disc. If you're in either of my postures, you've already put a little bit more load through one structure or another, and that's where you're going to start to have problems. Okay. So before we move on and talk about the muscles that work around there, Connor's going to show you a few tips on how to move without creating injury.
Yeah, so basically we all want to try and keep a neutral sort of core, okay? So having your thumb, where basically your rib, at the base of where your ribs join, and your other hand, go this way, just above the hips. We've got a space there, okay? So if I'm standing in a neutral position now, we want to keep that space. So whatever we're doing, whether it be digging up something from the ground, okay, or even just turning around, or picking up a baby to put on our shoulders, we want to hold that same sort of space between, okay? As soon as we close that gap and we go to pick up a heavy bit of dirt or a child, okay, you can see here that the back has had to round, okay? That gap has closed down, okay? Whereas if I was to open that gap back up, Okay, you're not going to do this before you get your spade out, but it will pay for you to practice just to feel right. So if I'm going to come down and keep that gap between my hands, then this is the position, this is what my back feels like to stay in this neutral position. Okay, but basically you can avoid all sorts of back problems just by, you know, keeping that spine neutral. Okay, and it literally, it's so easy to do, but so few of us think about it. And you know, I'm guilty as well. Sometimes in the gym I'll be picking up a dumbbell and I won't think about it, and we can get away with it a certain amount of times, you know, but it just increases the risk.